There comes a time in your life when you've got to look in the mirror and realize that sometimes the very thing that makes you lovable, the very thing that makes you approachable, the very thing that makes you generous, can also become the very reason why people mishandle you. You keep giving and they keep taking. You keep loving and they keep using. You keep opening your heart and they keep walking over it. Kindness is powerful, but hear me. When it is not guarded by wisdom, when it is not protected by boundaries, it turns into weakness in the eyes of people who have no respect for your gift. People do not always see your kindness as strength. Sometimes they interpret it as softness. They see your patience and they think it's permission. They see your silence and they think it's surrender. They see your giving and they think it's gullibility. You've got to understand that your kindness was never meant to be a doormat. It was never meant to make you the trash can of people's frustrations, nor the dumping ground of their dysfunction. Kindness without boundaries will have you bleeding for people who wouldn't even bring you a bandage. Kindness without discernment will make you water a garden that was never meant to grow. Kindness without clarity will make you tolerate disrespect and then wonder why your soul feels drained and your heart feels empty. Let me tell you something. People will take as much as you let them. If you keep giving without teaching them how to value what you give, they will consume it without gratitude. And the problem is not always them. Sometimes the problem is that you haven't yet decided how much of yourself is too much to give. Somebody listening to me right now is in a season where you're realizing that the more you gave, the less they respected you. The more you poured, the more they complained. The more you sacrificed, the more they ignored it. And you've been wondering, what's wrong with me? But the truth is, nothing is wrong with you. The issue is that you have confused kindness with the absence of boundaries. You have confused love with the fear of losing people. And you have confused generosity with the inability to say no. When your kindness lacks limits, people will exploit it. When your kindness lacks discernment, people will misinterpret it. When your kindness lacks self-respect, people will trample it. And if you are not careful, you will wake up one day resenting the very gift that God gave you to bless others because you let people misuse it. You need to hear this. Your kindness is not the problem. The problem is when your kindness has no structure. The problem is when your kindness does not have a backbone. The problem is when your kindness does not know how to close the door when people cross the line. You can be kind and strong at the same time. You can be loving and firm at the same time. You can be generous and wise at the same time. So don't you dare dim your kindness. Don't you dare harden your heart. Don't you dare let bitter people make you cold. Instead, learn to be kind with wisdom. Learn to be kind with boundaries. Learn to be kind with discernment. Because when you do, your kindness will be respected instead of exploited, honored instead of ignored, celebrated instead of trampled on. There comes a time in life when you realize that kindness, the very quality you carry so deeply in your spirit, can become the reason why people mishandle you. You keep giving and they keep taking. You keep opening your hands and they keep reaching in. You keep pouring out and they keep drinking without ever filling you back up. And the more you give, the more invisible you become to the ones who are consuming your light. What was meant to be a reflection of your strength is too often misinterpreted as a signal of weakness. They see your patience and they think it is permission. They see your silence and they think it is surrender. They see your generosity and they call it gullibility. The tragedy is not that you are kind. The tragedy is that you have confused kindness with the absence of boundaries. And whenever kindness is not balanced with wisdom, it turns into an open invitation for people to take advantage of you. You must understand that your kindness was never intended to be trampled on. It was never meant to make you the floor people walk across, nor the garbage bin where others dump their frustrations. But if you are not careful, that is exactly what happens, because kindness without discernment is dangerous. Kindness without clarity is exhausting. Kindness without backbone is draining. And what happens to a person who gives endlessly without boundaries is that they begin to resent the very gift that God has placed inside of them. They begin to hate the thing that once made them special. They begin to feel cursed by what was actually their blessing. It is not because kindness is the problem, but because the management of kindness is the problem. There are people who will take as much as you allow them to. If you keep feeding them, they will never push the plate away. If you keep making yourself available, they will never ask how tired you are. If you keep pouring, they will never stop to consider that you may be emptying yourself for their comfort. People who do not know how to value what you give will consume it until you are nothing but a shell of yourself. And if you are not wise enough to draw the line, you will spend your whole life serving people who would not walk across the street to help you if you were in need. That is the painful truth about unchecked kindness. It is not that you are too loving. It is that your love has no borders, no guardrails, no defense. The truth is sometimes the disrespect you experience is not about their cruelty, but about your inability to say no. You confuse saying no with being selfish. You confuse setting boundaries with being unkind. You confuse protecting your peace with pushing people away. And because you confuse these things, you allow people to misinterpret your love as permission to mistreat you. They trample over your soul, not because they are stronger than you, but because you refuse to stop them. They dishonor your presence not because they do not see your worth, but because you never required them to. Respect is not given in response to kindness alone. Respect is cultivated when kindness is accompanied by strength. Some of you listening right now are realizing that the more you gave, the less you were respected. The more you forgave, the less they valued your grace. The more you opened your heart, the more they walked over it. You thought love would change them, but all it did was give them a stage to rehearse their selfishness. And here you are, drained, tired, wounded, wondering why your kindness did not produce loyalty. But hear me, it was not your kindness that failed, it was your boundaries that failed. It was your inability to teach people how to handle your heart. It was your silence when you should have spoken. It was your tolerance when you should have walked away. Your kindness is not the enemy. It is your lack of structure that betrays you. Because kindness without boundaries is chaos. Kindness without backbone is fragility. Kindness without wisdom is exploitation. But kindness with boundaries is strength. Kindness with discernment is power. Kindness with structure is influence. You can be kind and firm. You can be generous and wise. You can be loving and unshakable. The goal is not to stop being kind. The goal is to stop letting your kindness be the pathway to your own destruction. When you align your kindness with wisdom, people will no longer see it as weakness. They will see it as strength wrapped in compassion. They will see it as love covered with authority. They will see it as generosity crowned with respect. Sometimes the very thing that you think will open doors for you is the same thing that will cause people to shut them in your face. Because kindness is a gift, but when it is not handled with wisdom, it is misunderstood. There are people who look at your kindness and do not see love. They see leverage. They do not see compassion. They see opportunity. They do not see humility. They see weakness. And the sad reality is you will keep giving and they will keep taking, because in their eyes you were never someone to honor, only someone to use. You thought that kindness would make them value you, but instead it made them assume you would always bend, always yield, always be there with no questions asked. The danger of living without boundaries is that kindness becomes a magnet for exploitation. Every time you say yes when your spirit is screaming no, every time you overextend yourself to prove your heart, every time you sacrifice your peace to keep the peace, you train people to disrespect you. They stop asking what you need. They stop caring how you feel. They stop even pretending to appreciate what you bring because they know you will continue to serve without requiring honor in return. And once they are trained to see your kindness as an obligation instead of a gift, you will notice the shift. You will notice the tone. You will notice how your presence is taken for granted. There is a fine line between being kind and being naive. There is a fine line between being loving and being used. There is a fine line between being generous and being manipulated. And when you do not know where that line is, you spend your life wondering why you feel drained, empty, unappreciated, undervalued. Because people will not stop taking on their own. People will not one day wake up and decide they should give back what they have stolen from you. People will not suddenly honor the sacrifices you made silently. If you do not establish boundaries, if you do not protect the dignity of your own kindness, then you will always be surrounded by those who see your love as a tool for their gain. What hurts the most is when the people you poured into the most are the ones who show you the least gratitude. You gave them your time. You gave them your energy. You gave them your attention. You gave them your prayers. And yet, when the tables turn, they vanish. The very ones who should have been holding your hand are nowhere to be found. The very ones who should have been covering you in your weakest moments are the ones who added weight to your burden. And you wonder to yourself, how could they do this to me when all I ever did was love them? But the truth is, they only did what you allowed them to do. You kept teaching them through your silence that it was okay. And now you are living with the consequence of what you tolerated. The problem is not your kindness. The problem is when your kindness has no structure. When you do not pair kindness with discernment, you will find yourself watering gardens that were never meant to bloom. You will find yourself investing in relationships that were never meant to last. You will find yourself spending years trying to convince people of your worth while they are busy proving to you that they will never value it. Kindness has to be wise enough to know when to give and when to stop kindness. Kindness has to be strong enough to say no without apology. Kindness has to be discerning enough to understand that not everyone who reaches for your hand deserves to hold it. It is possible to be kind and strong at the same time. It is possible to be loving and firm at the same time. It is possible to be compassionate and courageous at the same time. Do not confuse gentleness with weakness. Do not confuse humility with surrender. Do not confuse generosity with a lack of self-respect. You were never called to pour out until you were empty. You were called to give from a place of wisdom, a place of balance, a place of strength. Because when you show people that your kindness is not without boundaries, they will have no choice but to see it differently. They will see it as strength. They will see it as authority. They will see it as power wrapped in grace. There are moments in life when you have to come to terms with the fact that people do not always see what you intend them to see. You may believe that kindness will be met with kindness, that compassion will be met with compassion, that generosity will be met with gratitude, but reality has a way of showing you the opposite. The more you gave, the more they demanded. The more you served, the more they complained. The more you loved, the less they valued it. And you stand there bewildered, wondering how kindness could lead to such disrespect. But the truth is that kindness, when it is not partnered with wisdom, becomes a language that some people translate as weakness. They look at your patience and they assume it is passivity. They look at your forgiveness and they interpret it as fear. They look at your humility and they define it as helplessness. And because you did not draw a line, they believe there is no line. What you must understand is that people often mirror back to you what you allow them to see. If you consistently show up with kindness that has no boundaries, they will assume you have no boundaries at all. If you consistently excuse their behavior in the name of love, they will assume they can act without consequence. If you consistently put their needs before your own, they will assume your needs do not matter. This is why so many kind-hearted people end up broken-hearted, because what they intended as love became permission for others to mistreat them. And slowly, without even realizing it, your soul begins to grow weary, your spirit begins to feel heavy, and you wonder why the weight of the world seems to be resting on your shoulders. There is nothing wrong with being kind. There is nothing wrong with being compassionate. There is nothing wrong with being generous. The issue arises when you confuse kindness with people pleasing. The issue arises when you mistake silence for strength. The issue arises when you assume that to love people you must never confront them. But true love is not spineless. True kindness is not careless. True generosity is not blind. You cannot keep giving away pieces of yourself to people who do not know how to handle the gift of who you are. And you cannot keep pouring water into dry ground expecting fruit to grow. Some people will never value your kindness because they never intended to. They only valued what they could extract from you. And once you are empty, they will move on to their next source. It hurts when you realize this. It hurts when you wake up to the truth that the people you sacrificed for would not do the same for you. It hurts when you recognize that while you were building them up, they were quietly tearing you down. But you must learn to see the lesson in the pain. The lesson is not to stop being kind. The lesson is to stop letting your kindness exist without accountability. The lesson is to stop giving without discernment. The lesson is to stop excusing behavior that diminishes your worth. Because every time you allow disrespect in the name of kindness, you are silently teaching people how to treat you. And the more you teach them that it is acceptable, the more they will repeat it. Boundaries do not make you unkind. They make your kindness sustainable. Boundaries do not make you cold. They make your warmth respected. Boundaries do not make you selfish. They make your generosity valued. There is a way to love people without losing yourself. There is a way to serve others without sacrificing your own peace. There is a way to be generous without being exploited. But it requires courage to say no when you need to. It requires wisdom to discern who deserves your energy and who does not. It requires strength to walk away from those who repeatedly dishonor what you bring. That is not unkindness. That is self-respect. When people disrespect your kindness, it is not always because they are evil, but because they have learned through your actions that you will not stop them. They believe your silence means surrender. They believe your forgiveness means forgetfulness. They believe your patience means permission. But the moment you rise and declare that your kindness has a backbone, the moment you stand tall and refuse to be mishandled, the moment you show that your love comes with structure, you will begin to shift the way people treat you. They may not like it at first because it disrupts the cycle they benefited from, but eventually they will learn that kindness without strength is fragility, and kindness with strength is power. There are seasons in life when you realize that the more you bend for people, the more they expect you to break. You intended for your kindness to be a bridge, but in their eyes it became a doormat. You wanted your compassion to be a shelter, but they turned it into a place where they could unload their chaos without ever considering your peace. And it's not because you weren't sincere. It's not because your heart wasn't genuine. It's not because your intentions weren't pure. It's because people who do not respect themselves will rarely respect you. When your kindness lacks boundaries, it signals to others that they can stretch you as far as they want and you will never resist. You thought that by being kind, you were teaching them how to love. But instead, you were teaching them how to take the danger of unchecked kindness, is that it doesn't just drain you physically, it drains you spiritually. You begin to feel empty inside, not because you stopped giving, but because you gave to people who were not qualified to receive it. Kindness without discernment is like pouring fresh water into a broken jar. No matter how much you pour, it will never fill. It will always leak. It will always leave you wondering why nothing grows from all that you've sown. And the tragedy is that in the process of trying to keep others whole, you yourself become fragmented. You end up trying to convince people of your value while they are busy proving to you they will never see it. The more you try to demonstrate your loyalty, the more they demonstrate their disregard. The more you try to lift them, the more they try to pull you down, because in their eyes, your kindness is not strength. It is servitude. People will not always tell you with words how they view your kindness, but they will always show you with actions. They will show you in how they respond when you are in need. They will show you in how they treat you when you finally set limits. They will show you in how they withdraw the moment you stop being endlessly available. And when you see that, you must stop pretending you do not. Because the truth is that kindness without self-respect attracts people who want to use you, not people who want to value you. You become the one they call when they're in trouble, but forget when they're in triumph. You become the one they lean on in the storm, but overlook in the sunshine. You become the one they expect to forgive, but never expect to honor. And if you are not careful, that pattern will convince you that something is wrong with you, when in reality the problem is how you have allowed your kindness to exist without accountability. There comes a point when you must recognize that being kind does not mean being available to everyone. Being kind does not mean saying yes to everything. Being kind does not mean being silent when you are hurt. True kindness requires courage. True kindness requires balance. True kindness requires that you love yourself enough to protect the gift you carry. Because if your kindness is only extended outward and never turned inward, it is incomplete. You cannot pour into others and never pour into yourself. You cannot heal others and never heal yourself. You cannot respect others and never demand respect for yourself. When your kindness forgets you, it stops being holy and starts being harmful. It is possible to be kind and confront disrespect at the same time. It is possible to be loving and still walk away when someone dishonors you. It is possible to be generous and still refuse to be manipulated. Do not let anyone tell you that protecting your peace makes you cold. Do not let anyone convince you that having boundaries makes you arrogant. Do not let anyone deceive you into thinking that self-respect and kindness cannot coexist. The reality is kindness without strength collapses, but kindness with strength builds. Kindness without wisdom is wasted, but kindness with wisdom multiplies. Kindness without clarity blinds, but kindness with clarity empowers. And when people see that your kindness has a spine, that your compassion has a shield, that your generosity has direction, they will no longer trample under their feet, but be forced to recognize it for the strength that it truly is